My name is Kevin Stanley. I am the program coordinator for the Intensive English Language and Culture program at McGill University in Montreal. Very happy that you've joined us for this online information session today. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Montreal. I don't know where you are in the world, but wherever you are, welcome to our bit of a snowy, cold day here in Montreal. I'm going to begin by sharing a screen. I'm going to be showing you a presentation for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then during that time, if you have questions, please send the questions and I'll be happy to answer them as we go or after the presentation is done. All right, so I'm going to go with the sharing the screen now. Here we go. I think we should be good. The screen share is on, and I'm just gonna shift this over here. Good. Just a moment, let me get all the chat open and everything so we can see what we're doing. And there we go, all good. Great, so let me begin with, again, welcoming you, and we're gonna get started on the presentation now. So my name is Kevin Stanley, as I said. I'm the program coordinator for the Intensive English Language and Culture program. Today we're gonna talk about this program and everything that it does. So we'll start with a little bit of reasons why people wanna study English. We'll talk about some program features. We'll talk about the weekly schedule. We'll talk about the levels and the path to certification, how you get the certificate of proficiency. We'll talk about some of the extras that make this program really good, such as the conversation partners and the after-school activities. We'll talk a bit about Montreal and what makes Montreal a really good place to study English, and what is special about McGill University, and some reasons why you might want to come here. We'll talk a little bit about housing. You can ask questions about that too as we need. We'll talk a little bit about visas and immigration as needed, and upcoming dates and fees, and then lots of time for questions as we need them. All right, so as I said, if you have questions during the presentation, you can send them by chat. And just so you know, it's normally defaulted to have your audio muted, but it's up to you if you need to send me a message like that. Just it's easier when there's a big group. The recording of this will be available after a little bit later. It'll be available, and we'll contact you with a way to get a hold of the recording. All right, so let's begin with why you want to study English. So there's a lot of reasons why people are interested in studying English intensively. Some people need it for their job or their career. Some people want to study at an English university. Some people want to write a test like the TOEFL or IELTS. Some people just, they want to immigrate, they want to live in Canada, and learning English is a pathway for that. Or some just want to have a short study abroad experience and go to another country to study. A lot of people say that they want to have more opportunities, and this is true. English will open doors for you either in studying or work or travel or being able to work in foreign countries. So let me tell you just generally about the IELC, that's the Intensive English Language and Culture program's main features. What makes it special is the courses are 6 weeks long. So that means 6 weeks for one level in our 7-level program. You have 24 hours a week. This is full time. It's a lot of time you spend, and there's a lot of homework. So it's not something you can have a job and do at the same time. It's something you really need to be full-time working on this. You have 2 teachers, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. I'll show you a schedule in a moment. And the skills are integrated. This means listening, speaking, reading, writing, everything is taught by both teachers, and it's not really separated into different classes. So listening, speaking, reading, writing are all studied together at the same time and improve at the same time. You're going to be working in groups. This is always about working with other students, that you do a lot of talking, a lot of work together in English during the course, and that is what how you learn. And so it's not about being alone, it's about working in groups. Okay, and finally, each level has some kind of unique project. There's always something special and different about each level, whatever level you're put in. A lot of the times we're trying to get out in the community and get out of the classroom and do things, and the projects are often about that. And so you'll find out more about that as you get into your level. So here's the schedule for the intensive program. You'll see there's two teachers, instructor A, instructor B, and classes start at 9:30 in the morning. There's a 1-hour lunch break, and then the classes are from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. every afternoon. They actually end at 3 o'clock on Mondays and Fridays, but that's how we get the 24 hours. You'll notice at lunchtime it says conversation partner brown bag sessions. Once or twice a week, there are conversation partners coming to your class, and they're going to just, while you're eating lunch, just chat about things and talk, and that's an opportunity for extra practice for some levels, for all levels. Also, you'll see after school every day, there are optional activities. So sometimes it's a club, or it's volunteering, or it's sports, or some other kind of activity, a special outing in the community. These are optional activities. They're usually free, and they're available to students after school almost every day. Not every day, but almost every day. Each course has a page called My Courses, and it is an LMS, which is, like a web page for each course that's part of McGill's system. So your teacher will give you assignments and homework online as part of your course, and that's every level has that kind of thing attached to it as well. Here are the levels. Now we have 7 levels with 8 courses, and I'll explain a little bit about that. You'll see at the bottom here we have level 1, it's elementary 1. It's corresponding to a CEFR, that's the Common European Frame of Reference, level A1 or A2, and it's below an IELTS 4. Level 2 is elementary 2, that's firmly in the A2 level of the CEFR, again a little below 4. Then intermediate 1 is, you can see the range here, up to 4.5 to 5 on the IELTS. Intermediate 2, intermediate 3, you can see where they correspond. And then what's called bridge to proficiency, so our 6th level at B2. After that, there's 2 more courses. That's Advanced A and Advanced B. Now these courses are special in that they're really the same level, but and so you can do Advanced A first, or you can do Advanced B first. But if you would like to get the certificate of proficiency, the certificate that is recognized by McGill University as meeting the language requirements for entry, you must do both courses. You have to do Advanced A and Advanced B. Now, we don't know your level when you register. You'll take a test with us, an online placement test after registration, and that will tell us your level. So if you are, if your level is intermediate 3, then that's where you start, and you'll need to do 4 courses to get the certificate. If your level is intermediate 2, you'll need to do 5 courses. If it's bridge, you'll need to do 3 courses. If it's advanced A, you need to do 2 courses. So it depends on your level. And that placement test will help you. It looks like that. You'll be sent a link after you register for that. All right, so I'm going to, someone says they have an audio problem. I'm not sure. I know that I've got my sound is working as far as I can tell. I'm not sure what your problem is. Um, not sure where that is. So if you have an audio problem, I'll just make a little comment here. Please check your settings. I think it's working for most people. I really can't do much about that to help you right now in the middle. I'm going to continue. And so the conversation partners, I'll talk about them. They are McGill students, usually education students, and they will be, they're the ones who visit your class every week, at least once a week, to just talk. They're a little younger than the teachers, and so they're people you can sort of, like, around the same age as many of the students. They also do all the activities after school. So there's a team of them that you'll see around the school a lot, and they're people you can have a lot of fun with. Most of the activities we do after school are free, and I'll show you the schedule now of that. We have a schedule like this every session for 6 weeks. You can see there's many activities almost every day that are available for you to do, different types of things. For example, we have a volunteering program where you go out into the community and you can connect to different organizations. We have outings every Friday going around to different places in Montreal. Montreal has a lot of great things to do. Sometimes we'll go out of town. In this case, in the fall one, we went to apple picking. Sometimes there's other things that happen. You might have to pay some extra fees for that. Okay. And what else? We've got a Eco Club, which is an environmental club for students who are interested in the environment. We have Talent Club, which is for people who play music or sing or dance to do a performance at the end of the semester. We have board games. That's where people get together after school and play games like Scrabble or chess or those sorts of things to just to practice speaking and have some fun and relax. So we have a little bit of something for everybody. We have some sports activities, soccer and basketball, volleyball, this sort of thing after school sometimes during the session. We have TV lunch. We have during lunch hours on at least one day a week, you can watch a TV show, a Canadian TV show, and someone's there to help you understand it and talk about it. It's just a lot of fun. We also have some special workshops from experts and guest speakers to come in and help you with different things for jobs or for other things. So there's a lot that we have to offer that's free and optional for you after school outside of the 24 hours. Now, you might be wondering about Montreal. I will tell you today it's a snowy day in Montreal, and sometimes our winter is cold, but this really is a great city to study in, and I'm going to explain why. First, we're a big city in Canada. We have about 4 million people now in Montreal. We're not the largest city in Canada. Toronto is bigger, but Montreal is the #2 city in Canada. We're a very international city. We have United Nations agencies here. We have the Olympics. We're here in 1976. This is an Olympic city. We had a World's Fair, the Expo, in 1967. And we're really a city of art and culture. There's a lot of great things to do and enjoy here in Montreal, and it's really not a city for business and banking and finance. It's a city for culture. It's a very safe city. It's clean. It's affordable. It's very easy to get around. Students always remark about how nice it is to live in Montreal, how much they love it. It really is a great city for having fun, but also just getting, living here and enjoying your life. According to QS, we are the #4 best city for students in the world this year. We were #1 a few years ago, but we're always in the top 10. And because we have 4 universities and lots of great things for students to do, we're a very popular student city. We speak French and English here. It's a city that is a little bit more French speakers than English speakers, but it is really more or less a bilingual city. And we're at a university that's English in a downtown that's very English. And so it really is a place where both languages are there. But it's not just English and French. There's also many, many other languages. Like all Canadian cities, there are people from all over the world living here. And so you hear all kinds of languages in Montreal. So here's a few pictures of Montreal. There's looking from the east towards downtown and Mount Royal over there on the right. Montreal's on an island in a river, the St. Lawrence River. We are surrounded by water. That's our old port and a bit of the downtown. That's a view from our mountain, from Mount Royal, and McGill University is just below the mountain here. It's right tucked in there. So about McGill University, it is a very special university. Somebody's asking about Spanish, and yes, there is Spanish. There's a lot of people speak Spanish in Montreal. It's a place with a very large Mexican population, or people originating in Mexico, and Colombian and Venezuelans living in Montreal. There's a lot of Spanish speakers here. Yeah. And of course, lots of services for Spanish speakers. So about McGill, it's a top university in Canada. It was founded in 1821. It's an old university in Canada, and it is the #1 university in Canada. Although some years, University of Toronto or UBC is #1, or they're around the same. Those are 3 excellent universities, and I'm not going to say this university is better than that university. Some years somebody rates McGill #1, and some years it's someone else says it's Toronto. The point is that there are some excellent universities in Canada, and McGill is one of them, and they are, great places to study. So according to QS, we're #33 in the world. And we are, again, that's a top 50 kind of score, depending on what it is. We've had 12 Nobel Prizes, and we are, which is a lot for, I think, more than any other Canadian university. We've had 144 Rhodes Scholars. So we're a very academically oriented research university. And so, there's no question of the excellence of McGill. We are very international as well. There's 150 countries represented in the students. Our intensive program has students from about 40 countries, but McGill has about 150 countries. Okay, so here's some photos. That's our arts building, one of the oldest buildings in the downtown campus there. There's summertime in McGill. That's an aerial view of the McGill campus, right below the mountain there, right in downtown Montreal. So let me explain a little bit about why our program is the best choice for you. #1, I'd have to say, it's a chance to study English at the best language school in the best city in Canada at the best university in Canada. So that's a short answer, but I think it's true. This is the best city, and it's the best university, and we're the best language school for sure. I will say that. You're going to learn quickly if you choose this program, because you do 1 level in 6 weeks. It's very intensive, it's hard work, but you improve quickly. Next, you'll learn real English that you need for academic studies or your professional life. And finally, you'll study with students from all over the world. We have, as I said, 40 countries. You'll be really interacting with people from everywhere, and you really are going to be enjoying contact with people from everywhere. So some people are wondering about housing if you're coming from overseas and you're trying to find your way here. We have 3 options for you that we can recommend. So first, homestay. So homestay is when you're staying with a Canadian family. Now, we don't do the homestay services here at McGill, but we can recommend 2 agencies that we work with. And we will let you know about those if you're interested in homestay services. It's actually, homestay is the cheapest, most affordable way of getting accommodation in Montreal for students without getting an apartment of your own. Second is private student residences. There are a few of these near the campus, just maybe a few minutes walk away, very close, but they're rather expensive. So they're very deluxe. They have swimming pools and gyms and Wi-Fi and all these great things, but they are a bit expensive. And renting an apartment, Montreal is a very affordable city. It's very cheap. Apartment rent is getting a little more expensive, but it's much cheaper than other cities. So this is the cheapest thing, but it's a lot of things you have to do. There's lots of apartments to find, so it is an option. But you know, there's different advantages and benefits to each of these, and disadvantages. So you'd have to decide what was best for you. We can advise you about housing a little bit after you register. Now I'm going to talk about immigration, and there's a few questions that have been coming up about this, and I'm going to talk about those. So first of all, if you are an international student, you don't need a visa if you're studying less than 6 months. If you're planning to just study for 1 course or 2 courses, maybe 3 courses in 6 months, you can do that without getting a student visa. You just need to have a visitor visa. You need to be able to enter Canada. So it depends on which country you come from, but many people are able to visit Canada for 6 months and study in a program like ours without doing any special immigration work other than just entering Canada. So the other question here, if you are an international student and you want to study longer, if you think you may study more than 6 months, you need to get something called a CAQ and a study permit from Canada. So this means you need to be admitted, which means you need to apply for the program. What it means effectively is you must apply in advance. You need at least 2 months before you plan to study to do this so that you can get all your documents ready to get a student visa. All right, so that's important. If you are coming, one more thing about immigration before I get to some of these questions. Everyone who's flying to Canada who's not a Canadian needs to have an ETA on their passport, which is a electronic travel authorization. You apply for it online, ETA. You need a passport and a credit card, and you pay $7 Canadian, and you get this thing attached to your passport. It's important to get, you can't get it after you arrive. So whether you have a visa or not, you still need to get this. Well, if you have a student visa, you don't need it. I think you get it automatically, but if you're coming as a visitor, you must get it. Now, someone asked a question about if you are a permanent resident, you don't need a visa at all, of course. And the permanent residents have cheaper fees than international students. But the fees are not, you have to pay, yeah. I'll get to the fees in a moment. And I'll get to some of these other questions in just a moment too, all right? So let's go on after immigration to the dates, which is another question someone has. So the next course that starts is on January 13th. January 13th in 2020, and it's 6 weeks. It's on to February 21st. You can see we have 6-week sessions 6 times a year. There's 2 courses in the winter and 2 in the summer, May 4th to June 12th, June 22nd to July 31st. Then in the fall, it's September 14th to October 23rd, November 2nd to December 11th. So 6 weeks, 6 times a year. It goes on and on and on. If you want to, if you're studying for a short term, and you just want to take a next course, you can come in January. If you want to apply, it's not too late to apply for winter. You need to do it very soon though, and do that online on our website. So if you were starting in January, if you were going till June, you could do 3 courses. Those are the dates. You know, you can calculate how many levels you can do in that time. All right, so those are all available there for the dates. So the next thing is the fees. So for a 6-week course, international students pay $2,559 Canadian. Canadians and permanent residents pay $2,057. These fees do not include books at this time. So you have to pay for your books, maybe $50 to $100. These are only for tuition, for housing, and other types of things. You'd need to spend a bit more, of course, but that's the tuition fees. Now these prices may seem high, but they're about the same as the average price for Canadian intensive programs at this time. So yeah, that's the way it works. I will point out this: Montreal's housing is much cheaper than in other Canadian cities. So Toronto or Vancouver are much more expensive for housing. So our fees are actually, Montreal's very attractive on the fee side because our housing costs are so low in Montreal, cost of living. All right. Now, someone's asking about, I think they're asking about housing, and oh, there's another question about placement test. I'll just answer that quickly before we move on. Once you register, you get a placement test. You have to register first, and then the placement test is sent to you. And someone is asking about housing details. I can give a little bit more about that. I can go back to that after I finish the rest of the presentation. So just let me continue a bit. And here's a bit of information for you, which is actually quite helpful, I think, for many of your questions. The online student handbook, the URL is there, handbook.lic.mcgill.ca/IELC. And this online student handbook, we will send you the link once you register, but it is, I think actually I can probably, I can put that into the chat here for everyone. Just a moment, I will type it in. Here it is. It's http handbook.lic.mcgill.ca/IELC. All right, so that is one that you can access, the online student handbook. It has questions about housing and many other things, and I will get into some more details with that later, but I do recommend that you have a look at that to answer many of your questions. There was a question, I didn't get an answer for first question. You have to pay the fees, yes. So everybody pays the fees. This is not a subsidized course, so there's no fee. You're asking about the aide aux étudiants. Okay, that's the Quebec government. No, this program is not covered by the Quebec government fees. For that, you need to be checking the, the Quebec government has a loans and bursaries program, and it is not covered by Quebec, this program, because it is not a subsidized program. For that, you need to look for the English for Professional Communication program on our website. It's a credit program, and you can get details of that there, but I can't really talk about that today. Moving on, so for more questions or things, we'll do more chance with the chat here as we finish. You can get more information on our website. You can contact me by email, kevin.stanley@mcgill.ca, or for registration questions, language.content@mcgill.ca. Don't worry if you don't get those. I will put those in here as well. So language.content@mcgill.ca. And my email address, kevin.stanley@mcgill.ca. All right, so moving along here, a couple more things. Well, that's it. We're going to go to chatting for questions now. And I'll stay on for another, as long as we need if you have questions. So please send in questions by chat. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and go back to the camera. And I'll try to answer any of your questions as we go along. So let's see, there was some questions about housing. If you need, yeah, so there's a few links about housing in there. So there are two agencies. If you go to the online student handbook, you can see a housing tab, and it talks about places to stay. And it links to homestay agencies. Homestays cost about maybe $250 a week, including 3 meals a day. The private residences, the student residences, can cost $1,000 a month, or $800 to that kind of a month just for a room without any food. So it is a bit more expensive. With McGill housing, like living in the residence, it's a little bit difficult to do because those rooms are kept only for students who are full-time in longer-term programs like undergraduate or graduate programs. So those are for people who are staying for the full year. So there's a limited number that are available. Sometimes in the summer you can get rooms in the McGill on-campus residences, but it's impossible in the fall and winter. Here's a question about how many people per group. So usually a class has about 16, 17 students. That's about the average, 16 or 17, maybe 18. But sometimes the class is a little bit larger, maybe 22 or something, because sometimes a class is very small. So we work on a system of an average. The average that we aim for in the program is 16 students per class. But some levels have 8 students, so that means some levels are going to have 21 or 22 sometimes. That's what happens. So we aim for around 16, 17. But you have 2 teachers, and you get a lot of personal attention, a lot of time with them, so it's quite effective. So people are always sending me private questions, but these are good questions for the group. Here's a question: are there fee waivers for the English course for international students? No, this is not a subsidized program, so there are no fee waivers for international students. Those are the fees. There are, some countries have programs to allow people to study abroad. You could check with your home country. They sometimes have, it depends on where you're from. But we don't, this is a program that doesn't get any government money, and it has to pay for itself that way. So yeah, that fee is, the international student fee is not very different from other programs in Canada. It's actually fairly inexpensive compared to some of them in Canada. Yeah, that's the way it is. So were there any other questions? I'm very happy to answer more. I answered some of them there. How will a student determine, okay, so here's the first question. How will a student determine the need for a CAQ in the English course? All right. So the way it works with immigration is a CAQ is required to get a study permit. A study permit is needed if you're studying for a longer period than 6 months. If you're studying for more than 6 months, you must get a CAQ and you must get a study permit from the Government of Canada. If you have any idea about studying more than 6 months, you should get a CAQ. It's not difficult. You simply need to apply, and you get an admission letter, and you fill out the forms, and you wait. But it takes about 2 months, 8 weeks, to make sure you get your CAQ and your documents all done. You can't just get one very quickly. It takes time. So if you think you're only coming for a short time, I'm coming for 3 months, I'm going to go home again, you don't need a CAQ. But if you are going to study for longer, if it's possible you'll study for longer, you want to stay for longer, you must apply, get the letter of admission, and then apply for your CAQ and your study permit. Just don't wait until the last minute. You need to give yourself time. Here's another question from Arturo. I'm from Venezuela. Has the intensive English limit of age? Yes, 18 years old. You must be 18 years old. We'll accept a student who's 17 if they graduated from high school. If you haven't finished high school, you need to make sure you have a high school finishing certificate, then you're able to join the program. But 18 years old is the age, is the minimum normally. 18 or finishing high school. All right, yeah, of course, someone who's 28 can, yeah, we have people who are older too. So there are, probably the average age in the program is about 25 years old, because there are graduate students, there's older people, there's someone who's 59 who says they're 59. We have a student, there's a few students who are around your age in our program, who are a little bit older, who've retired or, you know, are looking for something else to do. So there are people who are older. It's not, I mean, it is, most of the students are a little bit younger, but it doesn't mean our program is only for young people. It's for everybody. The students are, some of them are in graduate programs and they're older, they're in their 30s or 40s. People in their 50s and 60s is possible. But we have people of a lot of different ages in our program. Everyone's welcome. And of course, you know, the activities that are done after school, they are, you know, some of them are a little bit young oriented, but they're also, you know, everyone's welcome and everyone participates as much as they want to in that. But it's a program for everybody, it really is. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll stay on the line for a little bit longer if people would like to ask more questions. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and so whatever's asked about right now won't be covered on the recording, but that way the recording won't be too long for everybody. But that'll be that. Okay. Oh, here's some, all right, some people asking about private residences. There are 3 private, I'll mention this one before I stop the recording. There are 3 private student residences nearby to us. One of them is called Parc Cité. You can get the link in the online student handbook. One of them is called Campus One. It's about 2 minutes walk away. Parc Cité is about 5 minutes walk away. And another one called Evo, which is about 10 or 15 minutes walk away from here. Those 3 are all, I mean, they're different prices, they're different services. You'd have to decide what you thought was best for you. But those are 3 private residences that I've seen, and I know some students stay in them. So I haven't heard anything negative other than some of them are quite expensive. I will, here's a question, it's a very good question about accepted into the NBA admission. So the thing with the language certificate, the certificate of proficiency for English language and culture it's very important. It's, if you get the certificate, you can enter McGill in terms of language. If there's a question about your language skills, you meet those requirements. You don't need to write a test. You don't need to do anything like that. They accept our certificate for admission. So, however, getting into McGill is not so easy. It's a university that requires very high academic standards. So I'm not saying you can't, but we can only help you with the language side. We can't help you get into McGill otherwise. It has to be your grades as an undergraduate that get you in. It's possible, but there's a lot of international applicants, but you need to consider that, and don't expect that because you take our English program, you're automatically going into McGill. You need to make sure you're covering your end of it with your academic skills. Okay, so, but the language admission, yes, for language requirements, doing this program meets the language requirements if you get the certificate of proficiency, which means you have to take Advanced A and Advanced B and do those 2 courses. Here's a question about registration for summer session. The summer session registration could happen at any time. You could register now if you wanted to. However, when you register, you have to pay, so you might want to wait until it's closer to. But we're open for registration just about at any time. If it's about admission, there's a period of time to be admitted, and that is you need to time that properly. Is this program sufficient to be able to study in an English university? Absolutely, yes. So when you finish the program, when you get the certificate of proficiency, you are ready for university studies. You'll be at a C1 level, and at McGill University recognizes our certificate as meeting those requirements. Here's a question. What do I need to be admitted? Admission requires admission for our program, for the intensive English program, does not require very much. You have to show your identity. You have to send in your documents by scan, your that kind of thing. There's not really, other than your high school certificate or whatever, there's no other requirements. McGill admission is different, and that's a whole other thing. I can't really help you with that. Here's a question about, is the GRE required after the English course for admission to master's programs? Yes, if the GRE is required, it's required. But admissions for graduate programs you need to go to the website of the department, the graduate program department, to understand the admission requirements for those programs. I can't advise you on McGill admissions because every department's different. However, if a GRE is usually required for some programs, and this does not replace the GRE in any way. It only gives you the English requirement.